The desert at night looked like a dead ocean. The air shimmered faintly, still carrying the warmth of the day, and above it the stars burned too bright, too numerous, as if someone had switched on a second universe. Major Daniel Cross stood at the perimeter fence of the Black Ridge testing facility, his eyes scanning the horizon for movement that wasn't supposed to exist. 2 hours ago, a military satellite had picked up something, a heat signature the size of a tank, appearing and vanishing in the span of 6 seconds. The brass called it an anomaly, Daniel called it a problem. He had spent 10 years chasing problems that didn't officially exist, downed spy drones that weren't built by any known country, radar ghosts that turned out to be solid objects, reports of radiation spikes in areas where no nuclear materials had ever been stored, yet this one felt different. The briefing had been unusually vague, even by Black Ridge standards. No coordinates, no photos, just an order: find it before someone else does. A convoy of armored Humvees rolled in behind him, headlights off, engines rumbling low. Sergeant Ruiz hopped down first, a cigarette already dangling from his lip. "Major," he said quietly, "we'll sweep the grid. Nothing comes up on thermal. It's like the desert swallowed it." Daniel nodded, though his jaw tightened. "Nothing just disappears, Ruiz. Not at this heat range." They moved out in a staggered line, 10 soldiers, each scanning the sand with night vision scopes. The stars reflected faintly off the black visors of their helmets. It was quiet except for the sound of boots crunching over gravel and the occasional click of a radio. 30 minutes passed, then something flickered, about 50 yards ahead. Ruiz saw it first. "You seeing that?" he whispered. Daniel turned. It was a shimmer in the air, like a mirage, but denser, more alive. His hand went instinctively to his rifle. The shimmer pulsed once, and for a split second he thought he saw a shape behind it. Then, without sound or wind, the air exploded outward. The men staggered back, dust swirling around them. When it cleared, there was something on the ground, a sphere, perfectly black, about the size of a human skull. No one moved. Ruiz muttered, "What the hell is that?" Daniel approached slowly, crouching beside it. The surface wasn't metal. It absorbed light instead of reflecting it. It seemed to hum faintly, a vibration you could feel more than hear. He reached out, but the temperature hit him like a shockwave. It wasn't hot or cold. It was both. Flickering violently in his hand, he pulled back and the thing started to spin back. He shouted. The sphere rose from the ground, floating silently. Every soldier aimed their rifle, but Daniel held up a hand. The air distorted again, this time forming a perfect ring around the sphere. For a few seconds it hovered, then shot straight up into the sky. The shockwave knocked them all off their feet. When Daniel looked up, the stars were normal again. The desert was quiet. The sphere was gone. "Jesus Christ," Ruiz whispered. "Major, what was that?" Daniel didn't answer. He was staring at the sand where it had been. Embedded half an inch deep was a single black fragment, thin as glass, shaped like a triangle. He picked it up with a gloved hand and sealed it in a sample case. Whatever this was, it wasn't over. By morning, the report was locked behind 3 levels of clearance, and Daniel was called to the command center. The base commander, General Wright, didn't bother with small talk. "That thing you found," he said, sliding a classified folder across the table. "We've seen it before." Daniel froze. "We're 28 years ago, Siberia. An object just like it fell during a geomagnetic storm. The Russians sealed the area for months. Everyone who went and came back sick, or didn't come back at all." Daniel flipped open the folder. Inside were grainy photos, men in hazmat suits, snow covered in ash, and a crater glowing faintly blue. Then another photo, a close-up of a sphere half buried in the ice, identical. "What happened to the object?" he asked. "They lost it," Wright said grimly. "Then the storm stopped. And now, after nearly 3 decades, it's back, on our soil." Daniel leaned back, his pulse racing. "You think it's alien?" The general hesitated, then said quietly, "We don't think, Major, we know. But we don't understand it." That Daniel reviewed the data logs himself. The energy readings from the sphere were unlike anything in the database. The pattern wasn't random. It was rhythmic, repeating every 47 seconds, almost like a heartbeat. He played the sound on loop, and the longer it ran, the stranger it felt, like the pulse was sensing with his own. At 02:17, his monitor flickered. Static rolled across the screen, then cleared to show something. A dark silhouette, not human. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, but somehow Daniel felt it was aware of him, staring straight at him through the feed. Then the power cut out. The facility went dark. When emergency lights came back on, half the screens were shattered and the servers were fried. Technicians swore there was no breach, no intrusion. The backup logs showed nothing. But Daniel had seen it, and on his desk, resting where the fragment case had been, was a Mark III, curved lines etched into the steel like claws. He called for security footage. There was none. He checked with the guards. No one had entered or left the room, yet the mark was there. And so was the hum. The faint vibration he'd felt in the desert was now inside the walls, deep and low, like the heartbeat of the base itself. By dawn, a new order arrived from command. You are to transfer all recovered materials and data to Site Epsilon immediately. Full lockdown until further notice. Daniel didn't like Site Epsilon. No one did. It wasn't a base, it was a graveyard for classified mistakes. But orders were orders. As his convoy rolled out, the horizon behind him shimmered again. He thought it was the heat. Then he saw them, 3 silhouettes standing on a distant ridge inless. No heat signatures. No movement. Watching. When he blinked, they were gone. The road to Site Epsilon cut through the Nevada wasteland like a scar, endless and empty. The convoy moved in silence, engines humming beneath the vast dome of a gray sky. No one spoke much after what happened at Black Ridge. Ruse drove the lead Humvee, eyes flicking between the horizon and the radar screen. The static never stopped. Daniel sat in the passenger seat, staring at the case on his lap. Inside, the black fragment shimmered faintly, pulsing like a faint light beneath dark water. He'd tried sealing it in lead, then carbon fiber. Nothing dulled the pulse. It was alive, or something very close to it. Every 47 seconds it pulsed, like it was counting down. Major Ruse said quietly, "How far are we from Epsilon?" 20 miles, Daniel said. "We keep moving, no stops." The wind outside had picked up, carrying with it a fine layer of dust. The desert blurred into a shifting red haze. Daniel checked his GPS. The signal was degrading fast. Then a voice crackled through the radio. "Convoy Delta 6, this is Site Epsilon Control." Daniel grabbed the mic. "This is Major Cross Transport Team from Black Ridge. We have the artifact, static." Then a pause. "Copy that, Major. Proceed to Sector 9 gate." The words hung uneasily in the air. "Tracked," Ruse repeated. Before Daniel could answer, the radar spiked. A blip appeared behind them, large, fast, closing in. He twisted around. Nothing but dust.
"Eyes up!"
Daniel barked. "Something's on our tail!" The second Humvee swerved, its driver shouting through the comms, "We got movement! Wait!" The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Through the haze, Daniel caught a flicker of blue light, then the Humvee exploded. The blast wave slammed into them, flipping their vehicle sideways. Metal screamed against the earth. The world turned over once, twice, then stopped. Ruse was the first to move, blood trickling from his forehead. "Major," Daniel groaned, unbuckling himself. The windshield was shattered, the night outside glowing faintly blue. He crawled out, gun ready. The second vehicle was gone, just a crater and burning debris. The third Humvee had stopped ahead, its soldiers already taking positions, scanning the fog. "Eyes sharp," Daniel shouted, his voice cutting through the static. "Whatever that was, it's still out there." Then the air began to ripple again. It started as a faint shimmer, then widened, forming a distortion that looked almost like a doorway made of liquid glass. The sound was wrong, low, grinding, like metal screaming underwater. And through it stepped something. It wasn't human. Not entirely. Its outline resembled a person, tall and angular, but its skin, or whatever passed for it, was made of the same black material as the sphere. Every surface absorbed light, every edge too smooth, too perfect. When it moved, its body rippled, shifting between solid and transparent. One of the soldiers opened fire. The bullets hit the air and vanished, leaving no impact, no sound. The creature turned its head slightly, as if studying them. Then, without touching anything, the nearest Humvee left the ground and tore apart mid-air. "Fall back," Daniel yelled, dragging Ruiz behind cover. "Don't shoot. It's reacting to energy signatures." "How the hell do you know that?" Ruiz shouted over the noise. "Because it's pulsing faster when we do," Daniel replied. The fragment in the case was now glowing violently, its rhythm sensing with the creature's movements. It wasn't an object, it was a beacon. And whatever this thing was, it had come for it. Daniel grabbed the case, clutching it to his chest, and ran. He didn't think, he didn't plan. He just moved. Behind him, the sound of ripping metal and collapsing vehicles filled the air. The ground trembled as the entity advanced, moving in absolute silence otherwise, as if gravity didn't apply to it. Ahead, through the haze, he saw the faint lights of a facility, tall fences, watchtowers, and concrete walls. "Site Epsilon. Ruiz," he yelled. "Run." They sprinted toward the gate as alarms blared. Guards appeared on the perimeter walls, shouting orders. Then something strange happened. It Fritra's mid-stride, head tilted as if listening. The air around it shimmered once more, and then it vanished. No explosion, no light, no trace, just gone. By the time they reached the gate, Daniel's lungs burned. The security team dragged them inside, slamming the blast doors behind them. The commander on site, Colonel Monroe, stared at them in disbelief. "Major Cross," she said. "You were supposed to arrive in one piece." Daniel handed her the case. "I lost half the team. Something attacked us. It wasn't human." Monroe looked at the fragment glowing faintly through the case window. "You brought it here?" "I didn't have a choice." She sighed and gestured toward a decontamination tunnel. "Get cleaned up. Then you're coming with me. There's something you need to see." Inside Site Epsilon, the air smelled of ozone and metal. The corridors were lined with reinforced glass, and beyond them were containment chambers, each holding something strange. Fragments of black material hovering or pulsing, some melted into machinery. One chamber held what looked like the skeletal remains of a drone, but its design was too intricate, too organic. Monroe led him into the main lab. "These artifacts started showing up 6 months ago. Small pieces at first, meteor fragments. We thought, then the power surges began. People started getting sick, and now your sphere." Daniel stared at the wall of monitors, each showing strange waveforms, alien symbols looping endlessly. "You're saying there are more of these?" "Dozens," Monroe said. "And they're all connected. We don't know how. But we intercepted a transmission a week ago. Something coming from orbit, matching the same frequency as these pulses." She handed him a file. The first image was a satellite capture, partially cloaked, hovering in low orbit above the Earth's dark side. Daniel felt the blood drain from his face. "That's a ship," Monroe said. "We've been trying to contact it." No response. "But 2 days ago a signal came back. It wasn't human." He looked up sharply. "What did it say?" She hesitated. "It didn't use words. It sent a pattern, a coordinate string, and your Black Ridge site was the target." Daniel's stomach turned. "It was looking for this fragment," and Monroe nodded grimly. "And now that you brought it here, they know where we are." The lights flickered. The hum began again, low, rhythmic, familiar, the same heartbeat he'd heard in his lab. Every monitor in the room went black. Then one by one they lit up again, showing static. Through the distortion a shape appeared. The same silhouette Daniel had seen before, watching him through the feed. It moved closer, its head tilting slightly, almost curious. Then, for the first time, it spoke. The voice wasn't a sound, but a vibration that passed through every wall, every bone. "Return the heart." The glass of the containment chambers cracked. The lights turned blood red, and the hum became a roar. The lights flickered so violently that shadows stuttered across the walls like ghosts trying to escape. Sirens screamed through the corridors, but even they seemed muffled under the deep, bone-rattling hum that filled every inch of Site Epsilon. The containment chambers shattered one after another, glass falling like rain. The fragments, each black and pulsing, lifted into the air, drawn toward the center of the room where the case rested. Monroe shouted over the noise, "Shut it down!" "Cut the power." Technicians scrambled to their consoles, but their systems were already dead. The energy surge had overridden everything. The fragments began to orbit the case, spinning faster and faster, merging into a single shape. The sphere was reforming. Daniel knew it before anyone said it. He lunged for the case, but the air threw him back as if a giant invisible hand had hit him. The sphere pulsed once, twice, and then stopped spinning. It hovered there, humming like the heart of a storm. "Return the heart." The voice came again, vibrating through the floor. Daniel forced himself up. "What are you?" he yelled. "Why are you here?" No answer. Instead, a figure began to form inside the sphere as though it were condensing from the air itself. A tall, faceless shape with a faint blue glow beneath its dark skin. Monroe's soldiers raised their weapons, but Daniel shouted, "Hold your fire!" "It's communicating." The figure stepped forward. The air distorted around it like heat rising from asphalt. When it spoke, its voice bypassed sound entirely. It arrived straight in their minds. "You have taken the heart of our vessel. Without it, the veil collapses. The others will come." Daniel's throat tightened. "What others?" The figure turned its head toward him, and suddenly he saw something. Images not with his eyes, but inside his mind. A fleet hidden behind Earth's moon, enormous structures built from the same black material, alive and waiting. Then flashes of destruction, cities burning, oceans boiling, the sky split by storms of light. He stumbled back, gasping. "Jesus." The figure's voice rippled through the room again. "We did not come for war, we came to hide. Your kind found us. Now the hunters know." Monroe's hand trembled over her sidearm. "You're saying there's something worse than you coming here?" The creature looked almost human for an instant, its face flickering with something like sorrow. "You called them gods once. They erased our sons. We fled across darkness. Now, because of you, they will see the signal again." The alarms turned from red to white. Every speaker in the base blared with static. A voice, human this time, cut through. Colonel Monroe, we've got movement in orbit. Multiple contacts descending fast. No transponders. How many? Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Daniel's stomach dropped. They found us. A figure began to fade, its body unraveling into mist. Return the heart, bury the signal, or all will end. Then it was gone. The sphere fell to the ground, splitting open like glass. Inside was something small and metallic, a core about the size of a human heart, still beating faintly with blue light. Monroe picked it up carefully, her gloves sizzling where they touched it. What do we do with this? She whispered. Before Daniel could answer, the base shook, a deep, rolling thunder from somewhere above. The ceiling panels rattled as dust fell in soft showers. Ruiz burst into the lab, eyes wide. Major, you need to see this. They followed him through the hall to the surface elevator. The ride up was silent except for the groaning of the structure under stress. When the doors opened, they stepped into chaos. The sky was alive. Above them, dozens of burning streaks cut through the clouds, meteors at first glance, but moving too precisely, too deliberately. They slowed, hovering miles above the desert floor. The air buzzed with electricity. One of the objects split apart, revealing a massive structure like a black flower unfolding against the stars. Those aren't meteors. Daniel raised his binoculars. The ships, if that's what they were unlike anything in human design. No visible engines, no seams, just smooth, shifting shapes that seemed to fold in and out of existence. Every few seconds, the horizon blinked and the world seemed to skip a heartbeat. Then the first one began to descend. Get everyone underground, Monroe barked into her radio. Seal all blast doors. Sirens wailed again. Soldiers ran past, loading weapons, escorting scientists toward the bunkers. Daniel stayed where he was, staring at the sky. The ships weren't attacking, they were aligning, forming a pattern. A perfect circle above Site Epsilon. Major Ruse said, "They're surrounding us." "I don't think they're here for us," Daniel murmured. "They're here for that thing." The ground split open near the edge of the compound. A beam of blue light shot upward, connecting the sphere's remains to the ships above. The air screamed. Everyone dropped to their knees, clutching their heads as the pressure built. Then silence. A single voice filled the air. Not through speakers, not through any device, but through every frequency at once. "Humanity, you hold what is not yours. Return it, and you may endure." Monroe staggered to her feet. "Who is this?" There was no answer, only a sudden temperature drop. Frost formed on the vehicles. The clouds above turned black and twisted. Daniel shouted, "They're reading our signals. They know exactly where the core is." He grabbed Monroe's radio. "This is Major Cross to command. We are under attack by non-human entities. Advise immediate evacuation." The transmission cut to static. When he looked up, the ships were gone, completely vanished. The sky was clear again, the stars calm and ordinary. But the desert wasn't silent anymore. From the dunes beyond the fence, something began to move. Shapes humanoid but too tall, too thin, emerged from the sand as though they'd been buried there all along. Their eyes glowed faintly blue. "Positions!" Monroe yelled. "Open fire." Gunfire tore through the night, tracers lighting up the field. The shapes fell, but when they hit the ground they dissolved into dust, leaving nothing but shadows behind. More kept coming. Daniel felt the core vibrate in his hands again, stronger this time. It was pulsing faster, calling them. He turned to Ruiz. "We can't stay here. If they want this, we have to move it away from the base." Ruiz looked terrified but nodded. "Where?" "Anywhere they're not." Monroe heard him. "You're not taking that thing out of containment." "Containment's gone," Daniel snapped. "Look around you." Another explosion rocked the ground. The fence melted like plastic, the air filled with ash. Daniel didn't wait for orders, he ran. Ruiz followed, clutching his rifle as they sprinted through the wreckage toward the desert beyond the perimeter. Behind them, Site Epsilon burned like a falling star. They didn't stop until the horizon swallowed the light of the base. The hum had changed now, deeper, slower, almost mournful. The core dimmed in Daniel's hands. He looked back one last time. In the far distance, the sky flickered blue again. Then black, then blue. Ruiz dropped to the sand, breathing hard. "Major, what do we do now?" Daniel stared at the core, its faint pulse reflecting in his eyes. "We'll find out what it really wants," he said quietly. "And if we can stop what's coming." Far above them, hidden among the stars, something vast shifted in the dark. Something watching, waiting for the signal to rise again. The desert swallowed sound. For the first time since the attack, there were no sirens, no gunfire, only the wind whispering through the dunes. The night stretched endless and silver, the kind of stillness that made even breathing feel too loud. Daniel sat beside a half-buried rock, the black core resting in his hands. Its pulse had weakened but not stopped. It felt like holding a dying heart. Ruiz crouched nearby, rifle ready, his eyes darting across the sand. "You think anyone made it out of Epsilon?" Daniel didn't answer immediately. The flames on the horizon flickered, then went out entirely, leaving only smoke rising against the stars. "No," he finally said. "They knew where to strike. That wasn't an attack. It was an execution." Ruiz swallowed hard. "You said those things were running from something. You think this is that something?" Daniel turned the core in his hands, watching the faint blue veins glow. "They called themselves the Veil. Whatever's hunting them doesn't just destroy, it erases. I think this thing was their last chance to stay hidden." Ruiz stared at the horizon. "Then why bring it here?" Daniel gave a bitter smile. "Because we're too curious for our own good." They sat in silence for a while. The wind shifted, bringing with it a faint hum. Not the same as before, lower, more distant. Like a signal trying to break through static. Daniel held up the core. The light inside flickered in response. Ruiz frowned. "It's reacting again." Daniel nodded slowly. "It's not random, it's guiding us to where?" He stood, eyes scanning the barren horizon. "We'll find out." They walked for hours. The stars overhead seemed to move with them, shifting in unnatural patterns. Every so often, the ground would pulse faintly underfoot, as though something enormous slept beneath the desert. Then, around dawn, they saw it, a dark structure jutting out of the sand, half buried, half alive. It wasn't man-made. The surface was smooth, seamless, reflecting nothing. Symbols glowed faintly across its sides, alien, geometric, shifting when looked at directly. The core in Daniel's hand pulsed faster now, brighter, resonating with the structure. Ruiz whispered, "Is that one of theirs?" Daniel stepped closer. "No, this isn't a ship. It's a vault." A deep vibration rippled through the air. The sand around the structure began to fall away, drawn toward invisible currents. A doorway opened, circular and perfectly silent. Ruiz raised his rifle. "You're not seriously thinking." "I'm not thinking?" Daniel said. "I'm following the only lead we've got." They stepped inside. The air changed immediately, thicker, charged, almost metallic. The interior glowed faint of energy running like veins through the walls. The corridor descended deeper underground, spiraling into the dark. As they walked, faint whispers echoed, not in sound but in thought. Words in no human language, but somehow Daniel understood their meaning. Warnings, regrets, prayers. At the base of the corridor, they entered a chamber the size of a cathedral. In its center stood a single massive column of black material, floating inches above the ground. Around it were hundreds of smaller objects like the fragments from Epsilon circling endlessly. Daniel approached, holding the core aloft. The floating column pulsed once in recognition, then, to his shock, it spoke not in voice, but directly into his mind. "You carry what remains of the Veil. You are not one of us, yet you hear." Daniel's breath came shallow. "Who are you?" "We were the Keepers, guardians of the threshold between worlds. The Veil was our shield. When the hunters came, we shattered it to hide. Each fragment sent across the void, you found one." Daniel felt his knees weaken. "The hunters? You mean the ones who attacked Epsilon?" "Yes." "The ones who devour light. They found your signal." He looked around the chamber. "Can we stop them?" The voice pulsed with sadness. "No. But you can choose how you end." Ruiz took a step back. "What the hell does that mean?" The floating column shifted, revealing a hollow center where the core fit perfectly. The voice continued, "Return the heart. Seal the signal. In doing so, your kind will remain unseen. But you will lose what you are." Daniel's hands trembled. "Lose where are, explain. Your world will forget. All memory of what you are, what you built, will fade. The Veil will reset, and humanity will vanish from the eyes of creation. You will live, but no one will ever know you existed." Ruiz looked at him, horrified. "That's suicide." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No, it's erasure." The voice continued. "Softer now. If you refuse, they will come. They will burn your sun, consume your oceans. Leave nothing but silence." Daniel looked at Ruiz, then back at the core. "How do I know this isn't another trick?" The chamber darkened. Images flashed across the air like projections. Cities burning, humanity fighting back with everything it had. He saw orbital fleets shattering, continents sinking beneath alien storms. Then nothing. When the vision faded, the voice said, "You are already too late. The hunters have seen you. The Veil can only hide you again if the heart is restored." Ruiz's voice shook. "Major, we can't decide this. This is way above. There's no one left above." Daniel said quietly. The chamber trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The hum grew louder again. Above ground, thunder rolled. No clouds, no lightning. Just the sound of something vast moving through the sky. Daniel looked at the core. Its light was fading faster now, each pulse slower, weaker. He felt an ache deep in his chest, as though the heartbeat wasn't coming from the device anymore. It was coming from him. He realized with a sinking dread that the core wasn't just energy. It was alive and it was dying. Ruse grabbed his shoulder. If we do this, everything ends. No one will even remember what we were. Daniel met his eyes. Maybe that's mercy. The floor cracked. A blue fissure opened beneath them, the walls groaning. Outside, the sky began to glow, not sunlight, but an eerie, cold illumination spreading like veins of lightning across the heavens. He took a deep breath and stepped toward the column. The hum shifted pitch, lower, almost pleading. Ruiz shouted, "Major, wait." Daniel didn't stop. He pressed the core into the hollow. It locked into place with a sound that wasn't mechanical. It was organic, like a final heartbeat. The entire chamber lit up, the walls alive with light. The voice spoke one last time, faint and almost grateful. "You have chosen silence. We will remember you even if the stars forget." Daniel turned to Ruse. Tell whoever's left we did it for them." The light engulfed them both. For a brief, impossible moment, Daniel felt the universe unfold before him. Every memory, every life, every breath of humanity stretched across time. Then, one by one, they began to fade, dissolving into white. When the light vanished, the desert was empty again. The vault had sunk beneath the sands, leaving no trace it ever existed. Far above Earth, the alien fleet broke formation, hesitated, then turned away like predators suddenly blind to their prey. One by one, they vanished into the void. And on the planet below, the world slept peacefully under a sky that no longer remembered what had happened that night. The wind had long since buried the vault. Decades passed. The desert changed shape, swallowing secrets and exiling silence. The world moved on, or thought it had. No one remembered the name, Site Epsilon. No one remembered the black sphere, the war that almost began, or the man who stood in the desert holding a dying alien heart. Humanity continued blind and ordinary, inventing stories to fill the holes where truth used to live. Then, 53 years later, the hum returned. It began faintly, a low vibration beneath the city of New Denver, like distant construction. People ignored it at first. Then came the interference, streetlights flickering at perfect intervals, compasses spinning, birds migrating in spirals. Scientists called it an electromagnetic anomaly. Conspiracy theorists called it a sign. No one noticed that the signal matched a rhythm no one should have known. 47 seconds between pulses. Dr. Evelyn Shaw noticed. She worked for the Global Geophysical Institute, monitoring seismic irregularities. At first, she thought it was data corruption. But when the same frequency appeared across multiple continents, she realized it wasn't random. The signal wasn't just repeating, it was remembering. Late one night, Evelyn sat alone in her lab, cross-referencing archives. The hum was playing through her headphones, amplified. It felt oddly familiar, comforting even, like a heartbeat she couldn't place. She pulled up old military records, but there was a gap. Nearly 30 years of erased data. Every satellite log, every classified file simply gone. Entire programs deleted as if they'd never existed. She leaned back, whispering, "Someone didn't want us to remember." Then her screen flickered. Static rolled across it, forming brief flashes of shapes. Geometric patterns, circular symbols that felt ancient and alive. For a moment, she thought she saw a face reflected in the static, not her own. Then the power went out, the backup generators kicked in. The hum grew louder. She stepped outside the lab into the cold night. The city was quiet, lights shimmering faintly under a pale moon. And there on the horizon she saw it, a faint blue glow rising from the desert beyond the city's edge. Something was waking up. By morning, half the world had detected it, a low-frequency pulse spreading through every communication system, buried deep in the spectrum, impossible to block. Governments issued calm statements, scientists scrambled. Some people claimed they heard whispers in their dreams. Evelyn followed the signal west. It took her into the heart of the desert, to a region marked on no map. She drove for hours through endless sand until her instruments went haywire. Then suddenly, her car died. The silence was absolute. Ahead, through a curtain of heat, she saw something protruding from the dunes. A smooth black surface, cracked and weathered but unmistakably artificial. Her breath caught. She walked closer, brushing away the sand. The texture felt wrong, too perfect. And there, beneath layers of dust, she found it. A single symbol etched into the surface, 3 curved lines like claw marks. Her heart skipped. "What are you?" she whispered. The hum answered. It pulsed through her bones, through the ground, through the air. The sand around her began to shift, falling inward like a draining ocean. Slowly, the buried structure began to reveal itself, massive, ancient, impossibly intricate. The doorway she uncovered yawned open. exhaling a gust of cold, dry air. She hesitated only a moment, then stepped inside. The interior was dead, long dormant. But as she moved deeper, lights began to flicker along the walls, soft blue veins awakening after a lifetime of silence. The same geometric symbols appeared, forming patterns that changed with every glance. At the chamber's center, she found it. A column of black material cracked down the middle. Beneath it, faint blue light still pulsed, weak but alive. The hum aligned with her heartbeat. She reached out. "Don't," a voice said behind her. She spun around. A man stood there, older, scarred, wearing a faded military jacket she didn't recognize. His eyes looked ancient, burdened. "Who are you?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "A ghost." She frowned. "How did you get here?" "I've always been here," he said softly. "We all have." He stepped closer, his boots echoing against the stone floor. "You shouldn't have come. The veil held for this long because no one remembered. But now you've seen it. And once someone sees, it begins again." Evelyn's mind raced. "The veil, you mean the signal, the hum?" He nodded. "It's not a signal, it's memory. The last breath of something we tried to bury." She looked at the cracked core. "What is it?" "The heart," he said. "The one we returned." He touched the column gently. The cracks glowed brighter under his hand. "I thought it would last forever, that our silence was enough to keep them blind. But the universe doesn't forget, it just waits." She stepped closer. "You talk like you were there." His eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw the faint shimmer under his skin, light moving beneath the surface, rhythmic and alien. He said quietly, "Was." She stumbled back. "That's impossible, you're human." He smiled sadly. "I was human. Once, when I sealed the heart, it bound itself to me. It needed something living to anchor the veil. I became part of it, a sentinel." Evelyn felt the air tremble. "If the veil's breaking, can we fix it?" He shook his head. "You can't, but you can choose again." The hum deepened, filling the chamber like the sound of an ocean. The walls began to flicker. Strange worlds burning, stars collapsing into darkness. Then Earth itself, fragile and blue, surrounded by invisible shapes moving closer. He looked at her, calm despite the chaos. "They've seen us again." The ground shuddered. Dust rained from the ceiling. Evelyn reached out instinctively, grabbing his arm. "What do we do?" He placed her hand on the column. "You remember now, that means it can pass to you. Someone always has to carry it." Her pulse quickened. "You mean I have to take your place?" He nodded once. "The veil needs a living mind, one that believes it can still hold. You found this place for a reason." The light grew unbearable. The hum rose to a deafening pitch. Evelyn tried to pull her hand away but couldn't. The surface was warm, no alive. It was pulsing with her own heartbeat. He smiled faintly. "When they forget again, the world will be safe. And when they remember, you'll wake just like I did." The last thing she saw before the light consumed her was his silhouette dissolving into dust, his voice whispering through the roar. "Remember nothing. Save everything." Then silence. The desert was empty once more. The structure sank beneath the dunes, leaving only the wind and the stars. Weeks later, satellites picked up a faint pulse from deep underground, one heartbeat every 47 seconds. Scientists recorded it, cataloged it, and moved on. They called it harmless background radiation. No one noticed that sometimes, between the pulses, a whisper could be heard. Too soft for machines to decode, too human to ignore. It said, "We are still here." And somewhere, in a dream no one remembered having, Dr. Evelyn Shaw stood on a desert of light, watching the stars turn blue again. She didn't know who she was, she didn't know why she was there. But in her chest, something beat with the rhythm of the universe, steady, endless, eternal. The veil had closed, for now.